On the new Talk Radio 1450 WCTC. Call Jersey Central at 732-545-9282. Toll free at 888-545-9282. Watch Jersey Central live online at WCTCAM.com or listen on your smartphone with the iHeartRadio or TuneIn apps. Connect with WCTC on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube by searching 1450 WCTC. And now back to Jersey's Morning Show, Jersey Central with Bert Barron.
7:37. We're back on Jersey Central on the new Talk Radio WCTC, the voice of Central Jersey. Good morning to you. We got our Need to Know Things coming up in just a little bit. Stick around for those. Got some really good ones to share with you. Well, with all the things that are happening in the world, of course, natural disasters, it seems like every day we have an earthquake, a hurricane, something's going on. The president yesterday speaking at the UN, the General Assembly there, and, of course, all the things that he discussed. One thing that was mentioned some time ago, and it's kind of falling out of the top of mind awareness, unfortunately, would be proposed cuts to Medicaid over the next decade or so with about 50%. Now, think about a 50% cut to Medicaid and just the devastation it would have on individuals and families in our country, and particularly here in New Jersey. I have a guest on the Jersey Central Newsmaker hotline here to talk about that. He is the executive director of the New Jersey Council on Developmental Disabilities. And he's here to talk about just what an impact cuts to Medicaid would have on our state. He is Kevin Casey, and he's with us on WCTC. Kevin, good morning. It's Bert Barron. How you doing today?
Good morning, Bert. How are you doing?
I'm good. Good to have you. And I got my hands on a letter that you had written that was recently published. And congratulations on this for saying what need to be said. Just if you could explain, even a 5% cut, what kind of effect would that have, particularly on people with developmental disabilities here in our state? I mean, this is funding that people rely on basically for day-to-day care. Talk about the impact it would have.
We think the impact would be disastrous, frankly, for the support system for people with developmental disabilities. About 75% of the funding for supports for people with developmental disabilities comes from Medicaid. And even a very small cut would be very harmful because the Medicaid budget is already very tight. I think equally there are effects for senior citizens and poor children because that's where a lot of senior citizens and a lot of poor children get their health insurance. But obviously we're particularly concerned with the possibility of people with developmental disabilities losing their services as a result of these kind of cuts. And many of these families and individuals have nowhere else to go, frankly, for supports.
Right, and this would impact so many people, Kevin, whether it's other family members, caregivers. It's really a residual effect if you were to see something like this happen. We're talking about people, autism, Down syndrome, other lifelong disabilities. I work with a lot of groups here in New Jersey, Kevin, to do my best by them and just to kind of get the word out about their mission and what they're trying to accomplish. And I see what these families and these people deal with every single day. And it's really amazing what the toll that it takes on families. Just imagine having to live your own life and at the same time take care of someone else, almost to the effect that you're kind of living another life for them. And to have any sort of funding cut would be just disastrous. It really would.
Yeah, I think that a lot of families, for example, would prefer to keep their family member at home with support. All of that kind of support is paid for with Medicaid. If it's necessary for the person to go live somewhere else in a group home or something of that nature, all of that support is heavily paid for by Medicaid. It's frankly with the kind of cuts that are being talked about here, it's difficult to envision how the support system would survive. I think it would be in serious danger of collapse if these kind of cuts actually occurred.
Yeah, and after a while, Kevin, and you're bombarded with numbers all the time, just like I am. After a while, you just kind of become numb to numbers, but when we're talking about an over $600 billion cut. Now, if you wrote down $600 billion and wrote it out, you would see what a gigantic number that is. That is apparently in the budget proposal to cut out that for Medicaid funding over the next decade, and let alone the millions of people who would lose coverage as a result of this. You would have people with just absolutely no options and nowhere to go and really nowhere to turn at all, Kevin. And that's a really, really scary thing for someone who is dealing with that on a day-in, day-out basis.
Yeah, I think the $600 billion number is just the number that's in the president's budget. If there's also a new bill in the Senate this week called the Graham-Cassidy bill, that's a repeal of the Affordable Care Act, and inside of that bill there's another, and it's a little hard to tell what the numbers are right now because it hasn't been vetted yet. But there's another significant cut to Medicaid in that bill. So, we're looking at the kinds of cuts that the support program for these folks can't survive.
Yeah. In the event of a government shutdown, Kevin, I'm sure this is something you keep a close eye on. You hear about threats. Well, if we can't build a wall, I'll shut down the government. And we've had a couple of volleys back and forth from the White House and from Congress about shutting down the government and working this and cutting this and adding that. Is that something that you worry about also in the event that a government shutdown was to actually happen, and that would impact the Medicare and people that receive the service from that? From Medicaid?
All the time, Bert.
Yeah.
I will tell you that a government shutdown is another potential disaster for these folks because so much of the money that supports these programs comes from the federal government. If the government shuts down and the money can't get out, again, you're looking at real devastation to this program.
It's scary. It really is. And so many people listening to us right now, Kevin, if it doesn't impact them directly, they know someone or they know someone who knows someone who is involved with this in one level or another. And it's really remarkable just how close to home there are families and people that are dealing with this and rely on this on a day-to-day basis. Is there a timetable that you're keeping an eye on, Kevin? Are there debates? Is there anything coming up in Congress soon where these things are going to be discussed?
Yeah, it looks like the Graham-Cassidy bill, which does some cutting to Medicaid, is going to be voted on sometime later this week or next week. It's a little hard to follow things in Congress because they keep changing, but the conversation right now is that they're going to do a vote on that sometime in the next couple of weeks. The president's budget will probably be discussed throughout the fall in terms of whether or not there are going to be huge cuts to Medicaid and that. So it's going to be an ongoing effort to keep these cuts from being made.
Wow. And what scares me about this too, Kevin, and we know how things work in Washington sometime where it's like, well, if you cover me on this, I'll cover you on that. I mean, it could be some small town, something in the middle of, the United States in some small town. Well, we need a new sign for our county fair. I'll tell you what, you vote for the funding for my sign, and I'll vote how you want me to on Medicaid. Something like that. I mean, it's kind of a trivial example, but I would hate to see this used as a bargaining chip for some other piece of legislation. This is something that needs to be on the table, discussed openly, front and center, and addressed once and for all, and get the word out to our lawmakers that these cuts absolutely cannot happen.
Yeah, I try to be careful not to over-dramatize this kind of thing, but this one's hard to over-dramatize because you're really looking at a life and death issue for a lot of the folks who are supported by this program. It's just crucial.
Yeah, scary stuff. Is there somewhere online, Kevin, where people can go and read this letter in its entirety that you recently had published?
Yeah, actually, they can go on our website, which is at njcdd.org, and there's actually quite a bit of information on there about this.
Man, keep fighting, Kevin, because there's a lot of people that are relying on this. I think of groups like Easter Seals and so many other ones that I work with on a regular basis. This is absolutely critical to them, and I would hate to see any sort of interruption with that. It's just tough just getting through day to day the way things are, that I can't imagine throwing in a gigantic cut like this, which would just devastate, it would destroy a lot of families in our state, unfortunately. But, Kevin, thanks so much for your time, and thank you for writing this letter. And I know you're going to keep fighting for the people of New Jersey.
Well, we really appreciate your help. Thank you very much.
Sure. Thanks a lot, Kevin. I appreciate it. Keep us posted, all right?
I will.
All right. Thank you very much. All right. Kevin Casey, he's the Executive Director, New Jersey Council on Developmental Disabilities. Get to that website, read that letter. And if you got to contact your lawmakers and express your displeasure about this, by all means, please do so.